May 29th, 2009, we're here outside the Metro Convention Center protesting a visit to Canada by Bush and Clinton. And I'm here with the lovely Annie Machon. Ms. Machon, could you please tell the people at home who may not know a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I started my working life as an MI5 intelligence officer, and in the 1990s blew the whistle on a whole series of crimes and misdemeanors committed by the spies in the UK, along with my ex-partner David Shaler. The case that made us quit, actually, was a false flag terrorist attack where MI6, which is the sort of intelligence gathering wing of British intelligence, funded an Al-Qaeda cell in Libya to try and assassinate Gaddafi. And it was illegal under British law, and innocent people died. So we left and we blew the whistle. We had to go on the run around Europe. David went to prison twice, and many of us were arrested around this case, including some journalists. And yeah, it's a bit of a sad story, really. But since then, I've become a very strong peace activist, and I've also been involved in building the European 9/11 Truth Movement.
Fantastic. So we here who study this type of information are fascinated by what spies do. So what did you do at MI5, based on what you can talk about, obviously, or all that stuff? But can you tell us a bit about what it was like being an MI5 agent?
Yeah. Well, there's a split, actually. You're an MI5 officer if you work for them. The agents are the people you run into organisations to infiltrate them. But so if you're an officer, it's mainly office-based. And you have targets that you have to investigate. So you have an array of different ways of investigating them, like human agents, telephone intercept, bugging their phones, that sort of thing. And then you have to assess the information that comes back and then take action, recommend a course of action, be it an arrest or further investigation or whatever. Sometimes you do go out and do more of the James Bond stuff with some of the gadgets, and also debriefing agents in safe houses and things. So potentially, you know, it could be a good job where you're doing something that can help protect your country and stop people dying needlessly. However, if you're working for an organisation where you then see them getting involved in terrorist attacks and blaming it on innocent people, then that's not the sort of organisation that I certainly want to work for. So that's why I left and blew the whistle.
Do most agents understand that there's some corruption within the organization and are sort of doing the best they can in there? I mean, what is the mentality of people, or are they completely blind to the fact that maybe at the higher levels there's some corruption? Can you give us an idea of the mentality of some of your colleagues in MI5?
Yeah. Well, many of my colleagues at the time also left because they had serious concerns about the ethics of the organisation. Most of them, though, were sort of bogged down with families and mortgages and things, so they couldn't blow the whistle and go on the run. But no, MI5 is a very closed world. It's a self-perpetuating oligarchy where the people who ask questions and have concerns tend to leave, and the ones who stay tend to be the yes men, and they just progress up to the top. So you're encouraged just to follow orders, not to question what you're told to do, and you get a sort of groupthink where crimes become normal. For example, there's been a lot in the press recently about torture and how intelligence officers have participated in that, both in the CIA and also a number of British cases where MI5 and MI6 officers have been involved in that. And I find that particularly difficult, because how you get idealistic 20-somethings joining up to do their best, making that sort of moral journey to being people who'd be involved in torturing another human being, I don't know. But I think that comes down, again, to the groupthink. And it's a problem for our democracies, because we have these spies who work in a very closed, very secret world with no accountability in Britain, getting away literally with murder.
Absolutely, and with respect to this, how do they, I mean, if I wanted to join MI5, MI6, or the CSIS or the RCMP here, and I assume, by the way, MI5 is more like the FBI in the States and MI6 is like the CIA? Okay, so you are allowed to operate domestically. What are you taught to make you, they obviously want to encourage you to toe the party line, so how do they teach you, how do they explain the world to you, and how has your understanding of the world changed since you left MI5?
Actually, I had a very good political education in MI5, because when I was recruited, they said that they had changed from the bad old days of investigating Reds under the bed. They wanted a new generation of officers when I joined, who would be working as counter-terrorism officers. So it was a bit of a shock when my first posting was to a section called F2, which investigated Reds under the bed. They were still doing that in the 1990s. So it was a bit of a historical perspective that I was given into the scale of their investigation into their fellow UK citizens for their political and democratic activities. And I just don't think that's right in a democracy. So I got quite a good political education in alternative politics. And I do feel passionately that we as citizens need to stand up and seize our rights and our responsibilities back. At the moment, we've become pretty much passive consumers of mainstream politics, and what we need to do is get active and start questioning again, and hold our governments and our spy agencies and our media as well to account, because the media is not doing its job anymore. The mainstream media is not holding the establishment to account. It's actually part of it, which is why we get these sort of lies that take us into illegal wars, why war criminals like George Bush and Tony Blair are let off the hook, why the international law is not being applied in an even manner. And, you know, it's time that the natives stirred. We need to get up and start start getting active again, because otherwise we're just going to find ourselves living in a police state very soon.
Well, you're out now and very vocal as a critic, so I want to ask you to make a judgment call. What percentage of the media or activist organizations or other organizations are infiltrated by intelligence agents as a ballpark estimate?
That's a difficult one because it depends how much of a threat they see the actual group to be. So, for example, in the 1990s, we shut down in MI5 the study of left-wing activity pretty much. However, because the peace movement then gained a lot of traction and caused a lot of political embarrassment, I'm pretty certain that they are now being investigated again by the spooks and by the secret police. But we also have another problem in our democracies where we have private security firms, which are just burgeoning all over the place, where a lot of ex-spooks wash up. And these people are deniable. They don't operate within any sort of democratic framework. So we have not only the official spies, we have the unofficial commercial spies as well. And there's been a series of scandals in the UK of these groups penetrating peace activist camps, environment camps, that sort of thing. So it is pretty much a blanket ban, certainly in the UK. We have slid into a police state. There's all sorts of laws now that invade our privacy. And we have CCTV cameras all over the streets. They can listen into our telephone conversations. Over 800 public bodies can do that now, even though it was only supposed to be the spies and the police. Now even local town councils eavesdrop on our telephone conversations. They want us to carry ID cards. They can arrest us for no good reason, purely to ascertain our identity. And if you're a terrorist suspect, they can hold you without charge for 28 days. So, all the laws are in place. It's just they're not getting very heavy-handed with the bulk of the population yet. But as soon as there's any sort of civil unrest around events like this or with some sort of financial crisis, then of course they do get heavy-handed, and I think that's probably when most people are going to get more politically aware, more politically active.
Well, we have to be aware of this. We're part of this group here at this demonstration, this protest. What would intelligence agents do if they were to take control of the leadership reins of these groups, or what would they do at an event like this?
It's a tricky one for them to get involved in the leadership of any sort of group. I know there have been scandals both in Canada and the UK where that has happened. But usually if they're infiltrating groups, what they would want is someone who goes in and gathers all the information so they can identify the activists. So it doesn't have to be anyone particularly high profile, but someone who perhaps volunteers to be the membership secretary or whatever, organises the events, they know who's doing what. And that's the sort of person quite often, but I'm not saying every time obviously, but quite often those are the people to watch out for.
Those are the people. Any other techniques for activists like myself and others who are looking to spook-proof their organizations? Any other suggestions?
I'd be very, very suspicious of people who try and cause overt dissent within the group. People who just cause trouble, who bring in sort of fringe theories that can ruin the credibility of the group, particularly when the mainstream media is involved. And also people who go around accusing other people of being shills or disinfo agents or whatever. That is causing division, and that's a very old technique of divide and conquer. So I think we just need to be aware that that's a very dangerous path to go down and should try and stop people doing that.
Well, fantastic. I was aware of your work first in the film Terror Storm by Alex Jones, and I've heard of your book Spies, Lies, and Whistleblowers. You're an accomplished public speaker, and you have a website?
I do, yes. It's just www.anniemachon.com.
Annie Machon, ANNIEMACHON.com. Ms. Machon, what are you speaking about these days?
I'm doing a talk, well, I'm doing a national tour of Canada at the moment, 7 events, and I'm speaking in Toronto tomorrow night, looking at the recruitment into being a spy, what it's like to be a spy, and also all the crimes that I saw when I was there, but also what it's like to then blow the whistle, go on the run, have to live in exile, and go through all the court cases, but then try and extrapolate out from that, which is a personal story, into some of the bigger issues which are still affecting the world of intelligence and government. So the lies that take us into war, the fact that the war on terror, this unending war on terror, is predicated on 9/11, which is certainly questioned by many millions of concerned citizens around the world, and many credible experts, high-profile experts, are now saying the official account does not add up. So I'm talking about that, and I'm also looking at how it's been misused with the crackdown on our freedoms in the name of fighting the war on terror. So quite a big picture.
Well, listen, welcome to our country. I want to thank you. What advice do you have for Canadians with respect to resisting the forces behind the corruption in our society?
I would say don't trust the mainstream media because they're bought and sold most of the time. Do your own research and then get active because you have a stake in your democracy. You do not want to be the generation that gives away democratic rights and our children have to live in a police state.
Any final thoughts on the geopolitical situation today? There's many things in the news. We're entering into an age of crisis. So I'd like to know your thoughts on any current political situation that you'd like to share.
I think we increasingly are looking at open communication, actually, with the sort of whole open source mentality on the internet, with the sharing of free flow of information with Wikipedia and things. And we have this amazing opportunity to use the internet as concerned citizens, as a global citizenry, to share information and get active and get mobilised and just inform ourselves. We've never had this opportunity before. We've always had the mainstream media as a sort of censoring blockage in the free flow of information. So let's make the most of it before the government shut down all our freedoms.
Absolutely, at the right time, the greatest threat versus the greatest opportunity. Miss Annie Machon, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Absolutely.
Thank you.